Most of you know that I come from Western Australia, but prior to Western Australia, I lived in another little country called New Zealand. Why am I telling you that? Dr. Wyane Topping is a New Zealander with a doctorate in geology from Victoria University in Wellington. In 1977, Wyane became a Touch for Health instructor, and by 1980 decided to train as a biokinesiologist. For 30 years, Dr. Topping had a home base in Bellingham, Washington, United States, while he taught kinesiology classes in 23 countries. In the late 1990s, he founded Wellness Kinesiology, and he has now developed more than 24 wellness kinesiology classes. Wow. Good on you, Wyane. In the year 2000, Wyane became one of 3 International Kinesiology College faculty members for Touch for Health in the United States. In 2010, Wyane moved to the United Kingdom to get married and to establish the Wellness Kinesiology Institute. He is also currently IKC faculty for Russia, Ukraine, and Hungary. For many years in practice, how many years in practice? 42 years. Well done, Wyane. And why did he write this workshop? Within his presentation, I'm going to get Wyane to tell you, and you will hear his passion for biokinesiology. Welcome, Wyane.
Thank you, Sylvia. It's great to be surrounded by other New Zealanders as well. Thank you, Catherine, and the other one is Cherie.
Cherie.
Yeah. Very good. So as Sylvia mentioned, I founded Wellness Kinesiology. There are about 24 different courses, but what I've done is I've taken 17 of those classes and I'm packaging them right now to get approval through the Personal Development School Board. And of the courses that have been approved so far, one of them is biokinetic exercises. So that's what I'm going to be speaking about today. Normally I speak with PowerPoint, but I'm doing it spontaneously without PowerPoint right now. So why biokinetic exercises? Because I took my first Touch for Health class in 1976. That was way back in the old days where it's hard to believe, but we took a 2-day Touch for Health class, then we went straight into an instructor training. Now, of course, we have Touch for Health 1, 2, 3, 4, proficiency, so 10 days before we take instructor training. Now, when I first looked at the Touch for Health book back in 1976, one of the things that impressed me was a quote that John had. He said, about 88% of people that go to medical doctors in America are going because of headaches, backaches, abdominal pain, shoulder, arm, leg pains. And I realized, of course, this was 76 before Americans started piling on lots of weight. So at that time, 50% of the body mass was muscle. So lots of those aches and pains are actually represented by imbalances within muscles. Muscles are too weak or too tight. Now in kinesiology in general, we talk about the triangle of health: structural, physical, chemical, nutritional, mental, emotional, psychological. On the base, for example, biokinetic exercises is dealing with that structural component only. Now, even though I got involved first with Touch for Health, most of my early training was biokinesiology with John Barton. One of the books that John Barton written was a book called Be Your Own Chiropractor Through Biokinetic Exercises, where you had 180 different exercises covering all parts of the body, and I'll describe what those are shortly. And I found it dynamite for a number of reasons, because with biokinetic exercises, not only are you balancing muscles that are underfunctioning or weak, but it can also balance out muscles that are too tight, that are out of balance in the opposite sense. And that was powerful for me, because what I was learning in Touch for Health was to balance muscles that were weak, looking at alarm points, finding out where the best starting point was, and to balance weakness to balance everything out. But here I was learning a technique that allowed me to work with muscles that are hypertonic at the same time. And that was impressive. Plus, most kinesiologists just deal with muscles. biokinetic exercises will balance muscles, tendons, ligaments, fascia, aponeuroses, cartilages. In fact, any kinetic tissue can be balanced with it. To me, that was a very powerful motivating factor as well. So I thought, this is great stuff. Now, that book became out of print. I was one of John Barton's top instructors. So I went to him and I said, look, this material is too valuable to be lost. Is it okay? Will you give me permission to repackage it, put it out in a different format, and aim it at the Touch for Health community? Because I was very much involved with Touch for Health, and I said there are lots of people there that would benefit from this material. He was gracious in saying, yes, you have my permission to do so. So I reformatted the material, put it in a slightly more professional format. And rather than 180 different exercises, I picked 106. All the muscles we have in Touch for Health, except sacrospinalis, which is actually a whole series of muscle groups, parallel and subparallel spine, but all the others, and lots of the muscles we have in the professional John Dew's material, Dr. Bruce Dew's material, and etc. So I packaged all that together. Now, one of the things I had learned from John C. early on was a basic principle from George Goodhart. He said, most pain is due to opposing muscle weakness. Now, that's counterintuitive, because if I have pain in the shoulder, if I go to a medical doctor, what's the medical doctor going to do? Probably give me a muscle relaxant to decrease the pain. If I go to a massage therapist, if I go to a body worker, what are they going to be doing? Focusing on pain. Why? Because that's my presenting symptom. That's what I'm going in with. That's what I say I'm having problems with. That's where they focus their attention. But George Goodhart said, no, they're wrong. That's the effect. The real cause is the opposing muscle that's not doing its job, that's weak. So weak muscle causes the other one to tighten, and most of the time it's the muscle is too tight that's creating all the pain. And that's one of the reasons I was fascinated with biokinetic exercises, because it works well with muscles that are hypertonic. Whereas, as I said, in Touch for Health, we're working primarily with the hypotonic ones. Now, what are the advantages of biokinetic exercises? Well, I should explain what they are first. If I take the biceps and just contract the muscle and just hold in this position, it doesn't do anything. But if I take my hand, hold that arm in that position, the muscle is in a shortened state, but it's not an active contraction. It has now become a passive contraction. And what John Barton found is when you passively contract to the kinetic tissue and hold in that position without the tissue being used, it goes back into balance. Whether it's hypotonic or hypertonic, doesn't matter. So I like that particular principle. Now, what are the advantages of becoming very familiar with biokinetic exercises? It's very strictly in the self-responsibility model, because when I teach the material, people can go home, they can do the exercise for themselves. They don't need someone else to muscle test them. They can just do it themselves, just look at the photograph, read the description, carry out this description, and they'll notice the change. They had tension there beforehand or pain. At the end of the exercise, it's gone. So that's what I like. It's self-responsibility. It's very much in the educational model. When I'm working with a client, if I find, let's say I find that the psoas is my starting point for the balance. If I suspect it's chronic, I can say, by the way, how do you sleep? Do you sleep in the fetal position? Yeah, how did you know? Because if it's chronic, that's probably how you're going to sleep. Because the psoas muscle goes from the lower part of the spine, T12 to L5, and steep down to the top of the leg. And when you shorten that, what you're doing is bringing the knee up towards the opposing shoulder. So if you're sleeping in the fetal position, the muscle is shortened, but it's the weight of the blankets and the quilt on the legs that holds that leg in position, converting it from an active to a passive contraction, and your body is balancing itself out while you're asleep. So they're doing a biokinetic exercise without recognizing what they're doing. That's how I know it's chronic. So I'm working on this client. I find the psoas is a major imbalance. and I can send them home with instructions on how they can do that exercise for themselves. So it's very much in the educational model too, which is great. Now, as I said, there are 106 different muscles I have in that book, and that's a lot of material. So when people have taken that 2-day class, they become a lot more familiar with the body, they have more confidence. The more confidence they have, the more willing they are to jump in and start working with it with clients, which is also great. Now, a lot of times if you have someone at work, I've got a client that does a lot of work and they get a lot of tension in the upper shoulders. I can send them out of the session with an exercise they can do maybe a couple of times a day to relieve that tension, because if you have a job where you're doing a lot of data entry on a computer, you're going to build up tension in the upper trapezius muscles. Now, those muscles are weak, but there's too much tension there because of the activity, and that exercise will help them relieve it. Now, just to show you a bit of difference between biokinetic exercise and Touch for Health. In Touch for Health, we work with the quadriceps. When I first started taking Touch for Health years ago, we just push down on the leg like this. That's checking the flexion aspect of the quadriceps, which is just the rectus femoris. But the 3 other muscles make up the quadricep group. After about 20 years, then we shifted to doing Touch for the quadriceps as a 2-handed test, checking the flexion and part of the extension aspect. But as people get older, lots of times we get knee pains, and lots of times those knee pains are because of imbalance between vastus medialis, vastus lateralis, but we don't check those in Touch for Health. In biokinetic exercises, we have ways in which you can differentiate between those 2 aspects of the quadricep group. We can even dig deeper. We can show you ways to find out whether you're dealing with a muscle imbalance or tendon imbalance. And we can balance them both. For 30 seconds to balance it if it's a muscle, if it's tendon, for a minute, that'll bring it into balance. And we can find out which ones are underactive, which ones are overactive. In Touch for Health, we have 1 muscle test for hamstrings. In the biokinetic exercise, we split it up into biceps femoris, semitendinosus, and semimembranosus. 3 different muscle tests, 3 different biokinetic exercises. Another example would be, let's see, adductors. We have 1 muscle test in Touch for Health, the adductors, but it's actually a group of muscles. In the biokinetic exercises, we split it into adductor magnus, which means huge, adductor longus, adductor brevis, pectineus. Muscle tests are all different biokinetic exercises. So you're starting to get the idea. With the 106 different muscles, we're able to teach you a lot of ways of testing the body to find out how it's out of balance and bringing muscles into balance that we do not cover in something like Touch for Health. Once you have good Touch for Health background, if ever you have a situation where the muscle isn't responding to neurolymphatics, neurovasculars, or meridians, no sweat. Do the biokinetic exercise, it'll work. Sometimes after you've done all those corrections, the body's saying, I want something in addition, then you do the biokinetic exercise. Sylvia, run out of time, have I?
Not really. Question for you.
Okay.
I'm getting excited now.
Right.
Would you be so kind as to demonstrate the type of exercise that someone who works a lot with computers could do to ease shoulder tension?
Is that because you're doing a lot of computer work, or you'd like to?
I am.
Right.
I do. I do.
Yeah.
I
Well,
do. And then sometimes, oh, ouch.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Well, it's true. If people do a lot of computer work, there's a tendency for the tension to accumulate in the upper trapezius muscles. And as I said, if you muscle check like this, they'll lock. In fact, they'll be real solid because they're not hypotonic. They're actually too tight, but it's not because of imposing muscle weakness. It's just because of job-related activity. So the biokinetic exercise there, what we have to do is bring the origin and insertion as close together as possible and use the muscle. So if I go like this, that's not going to work because I'm actively using the muscle. However, and let me know if you don't see me on the screen. You see me?
Yes.
Now, if you put reach across with this hand to this elbow, rotate the chin to the right, I'm pressing with this hand down into the elbow, into the shoulder. And if I hold that position for 30 seconds, I would balance the muscle. If that was a tendon, I'd be holding it for a minute. Now, after doing that for a while, I just come out that slowly, and then just come across and do the same thing to the other side. So you notice what I'm doing is this hand is doing the work by holding the elbow in that position. But holding the elbow in that position effectively shortens that muscle and the tendon and allows it to go back in balance. And so that'll take the excess tension and bring it back in the proper tone. Or if you had an imbalance between the two shoulders, pain here, weakness here, I could do the biokinetic exercise for the one that's hypotonic, that would drop the tone down. The one that's hypotonic would bring the tone up. So same exercise balances both conditions. So that illustrates how it works.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Wayne, do you have a contact for anybody who wants it? We'll certainly put it on. We'll certainly put it on with the video.
Well,
when the
I
video
don't have a
goes up
class
on
set up.
YouTube.
The reason is because I don't teach this online, because it really needs a lot of involvement in the classroom. But I've got instructors in many countries around the world. In fact, Jer is one of the instructors, Jackie's another one, Catherine's taking that class. I have instructors all over. So it's better for people to find local instructors so they can be in a class, so it's hands-on. Yes, Jer.
Wayne, I have one coming up in September.
Okay, very good. So we'll fly to Ireland.
And Tony here has a question for you.
Yes, okay, Tony.
Hi, Wayne. Nice listening to you. That was a really interesting talk. I have a question about just the number. How many muscles did you say you can teach in how many days?
106. I speak as fast as Jer does. That's how I can cover 106.
Yeah, well, that's my question. Just from coming from the perspective of teaching 42 touch for health muscles in many more days, how do you cover all that?
Okay, I'll tell you how I set up the class. The first day I want to demonstrate, give a lecture which takes about 30 minutes. That's the end of the lecture. The rest is demonstration and workshopping. So first what I'll do is take 3 muscles in the lower part of the back and have people in the class do a pre-assessment, what the tension level is, pain, restraint, range of movement, do 3 sets of exercises as a class activity, then do a post-evaluation to notice the differences. Then we go to the next shoulder area, take 3 muscles again, pre-assessment, the exercises, then the post-assessment. That's to prove that this can all be done without muscle testing by yourself, truly self-responsibility. Now, once people have got that established, they can do it for themselves. Then we take about 15 pairs of muscles on the first day, all from Touch for Health 1 and 2. The reason for that, most of the people already coming in Touch for Health 2 background, so they have the knowledge of those muscles. That way they can focus in on the biokinetic exercises. Then we'll go to the quadriceps. With the quadriceps, we can split it up into 4 component muscles. I can then teach how you can do the circuit localizing to find out whether you're dealing with muscle or tendon, whether it's hypotonic, hypertonic, so we can get into the energetics of it all. We can also use the muscle testing to identify whether the biokinetic position is close or ideal. Then we go through all the rest of the muscles, about 79 of them. Now, how do I do that? If I was teaching in Ireland, I'd say, let's say we have 20 in the class. How many of you have pain in the shoulders? And I note how many hands go up. How many of you had pain in the hips? And maybe a few fewer hands go up. So we go through the regions of the body, find out where most of the aches and pains are. I put that up on the board. Let's say we start out with hips, because that's where most people have their pains. I'll get a volunteer from the group that has most pain, demonstrate all the muscle testing, all the biokinetic exercises and see if I can send them back to the seat without pain. Then we'll pick someone with shoulder problems and do the same thing. Now, after we've done all muscles concerning the hips, I'll have people with the hip problems raise their hands, people without hip problems pair themselves up with those people and work through the muscles I demonstrated. Then we do the same thing with other locations. So we cover head, neck, shoulders, upper arm, forearm, wrist, palm, digits, hips, lower back, abdominal area, hips, thighs, knees, feet. And we just work through the body, going with geographic locations. That's how I cover it all. It's a fast ride, but we can cover 106 muscles in 2 days with that approach.
That's a lot of information. I'd say you'd be holding on to your chair trying to keep up with Wyane by the sounds of things.
Oh, well, Jan knows how to do it. She may teach a slightly different way, but you'll find out later on.
That's great. Thanks very much, Wyane.
All right, welcome, Tony. Okay, any other questions?
Wyane,
Yes.
oops. Any other questions?
Yes, I was just wondering about how easy is it for people to just do it for themselves? In the class, you have them working with someone.
Yes.
But is it just as effective working on your own?
Yes, and when you're doing it on yourself, I'll give you one pointer. People are doing it because they have pain. If you go into a biokinetic exercise position and the pain increases, get out of that position. Do the same exercise on the other side of the body, which usually does not have pain. Then when you go back into the first position again, usually you can do it without experiencing pain. Yeah, so it works well. I was teaching a class in Melbourne, Australia. 2 people, students that come down from Singapore in the evening. They were working through all the biokinetic exercise by themselves, ones that we hadn't even covered in class even, and they remarkable differences in their bodies, and they're quite easily able to do it, looking at the photographs, looking at the notes, the written material. It works fine.
Nice, nice. Wyane, thank you so much. This was just packed information. So how to teach 106 muscles in 2 days? I think the answer is contained in one word: quickly.
Yes, that's true.
Very good. Everybody, please unmute yourselves. Okay. I have a question for you all. Do you all feel comfortable if we take a photo of the group today? If there's anybody who says, I do not want you to take a photo, just put it in the chat box right now. And, oh, you'd like us to, Teresa? Good. If you'd like it, if you don't want your photo taken, please put it in the chat box now. What I'd like to say just before I take the photo is thank you so much for coming to meet the authors today. And the videos will be on the Personal Development School website, probably in about a week to 10 days, but we'll let you know when it's up so that you can send it out and share it with all your friends.